can you, first of all, you can hear me, right, correctly? So first of all, my name is Martina Bossi. I'm a senior energy economist at ESMAP, where I lead the Efficient Clean Cooling program. And I wanted to welcome everyone to this, what do we call it? Not brown bag lunch, but brown bag breakfast series that we're doing on transforming the energy efficient cooling appliance market, insights from Africa, which we're hosting at ESMAP in the context of our cooling program. And really happy to have you all. I wanted to start a little bit by giving you a little bit of context of why we decided to organize this session, and also and why we're so keen to learn about the UNEP U4E's experience and BASIS experience in designing and rolling out mechanisms to support access and a transition to energy efficient and climate friendly appliances in 3 African countries. I believe these countries are Ghana, Rwanda, and Senegal, if I'm not mistaken. For those of you who have not followed very closely the cooling world, the IPCC had reported that at 1.5 degrees Celsius of warming, we would have 2.3 billion people that could be exposed to vulnerable heat wave events. They estimate that that's a threshold that could be reached as early as 2030. SC4All also has a publication and research on state of access of cooling and the link to development. And according to them, more than 1 billion people are already at risk of lack of access to cooling in both urban and rural areas. And a large share of this population lives in Africa. Thus, really the importance of looking how we can make inroads on the continent. And to be clear, we're not talking about luxury here. This is really a development agenda that we're tackling. This lack of cooling has implications for the health and well-being of people. It has implications for food security, for productivity, as well as economic development and livelihood. And in terms of health, we know that extreme heat can cause illnesses that can go from heat cramps, heat exhaustion, heat stroke, and even death at worst. At the same time, we've all lived, we were just talking about through the pandemic, and we're in a situation where governments around the globe are responding to the COVID-19 pandemic. And many of us have realized the link with delivering sustainable cooling in terms of cold chains for food, for medicine, for vaccines, as well as the challenges of social distancing during extreme heat have revealed during this pandemic. Last but not least, I wanted to make the link with our climate change goals, both in terms of adaptation and building resilience, as well as mitigation, as meeting the Paris goals will demand that we all do a really sharp turn towards more energy efficient and climate friendly cooling solutions. Our group at ESMAP, and thanks a lot to Darren Bedrosian for helping organize this session here. We plan to organize periodic webinars related to cooling, looking at technical solutions and the identification of suitable models and approaches in developing countries. And so with this in mind, we're very, very delighted to welcome Suhir Hamani, I hope I pronounced her name correctly, who is an energy efficiency specialist at UNEP U4E, and she will be joined by Aurélien Pillet, Senior Sustainable Energy Finance Specialist with the Basel Agency for Sustainable Energy, or BASE, also a former ESMAP colleague, so really a treat to have you back with us, Aurélien, who will share with us the insights from their work in putting together really what sounds like a very comprehensive model to push and transform energy efficient cooling appliances in Africa. And so we plan to give you about 25 minutes for your presentation. We're then very lucky to have probably 2 of the World Bank Group's most knowledgeable people on cooling as discussants, with also a lot of practical operational experience under their belt, and because we want to examine where this experience could happen, what are the conditions that need to be put in place. And so we're really happy that we'll be able to hear from Ashok Sarkar, Senior Energy Specialist at the bank, and also Ian Crosby, Principal Operations Officer at the IFC. And so after their comments, we plan to open up for general Q&A session with everyone on the line. I guess it would be easiest, given how we're structured to invite people to really write down your comments in the chat, and we'll try to pick it up during the Q&A session as much as we can, and then people, the discussants and the presenters can sort of might be able to read them and prepare a little bit their thoughts. And so without further ado, I'll leave you the floor, Aurélien, Touir. I don't know who starts, but thanks again for making the time to join us.
Thank you, Martina. I hope you can hear me well. Super. Thank you again for this invitation and for this opportunity to share the last updates from the project that we are working on. So I'll start by presenting myself. Aurélien, I think you already done. So we start the presentation. The plan. Next slide, please. There. So the plan will be a quick overview on the projects, and we plan to dive in some specific areas of our project, the three projects, because there's so much details to share. But we will be trying quick. But don't hesitate to share your questions or inquiries if you need more details. Next slide, please. So we start with the three projects, the overview. As I said, the first, we start with the last thing that we just finished, which is the video, the TV ad video for ECOFRIDGES Go Ghana, which was the project was. I think not everybody's muted. So.
Are you talking to me? What's no. Again? I wasn't listening to a meeting. What were you saying?
Colleagues, if you can please mute while the presenters are speaking. Thank you.
Thank you, Darren. So as I said, I will start with the last thing that we just finished, which is recording the TV ad for ECOFRIDGES Go, which will be presented in it will be added as a TV ad for TV in part of the big public communication campaign, but now it will be starting in the vendor's shop and the waiting areas of the banks. Next slide, please, Darren. Oh, there is no voice. Can you hear voice? Darren, please unmute yourself so we can hear the voice. We still don't hear the voice, unfortunately. I don't know, Darren, are you unmuted?
Yes, I am.
What's okay? So so this is the TV I wanted. It was a cool video to present, explaining the application process, the different partners, and presenting the strength points of the project, presenting a financing mechanism with a 0% interest rate to the future clients of the program, and where they can have access to the program in the vendor's shop, where we name them, and then we request if they need more information. They can access the different platforms of the program, website, and different social medias pages. Next slide, please. So the team behind, a very big team of and wide range of experts from cooling policies and technologies, energy efficiency, communications and marketing, finance, and waste management, and different range also of partners from regional organizations and international ones. Next, please. So ECOFRIDGES is the project in Ghana and Senegal to develop two financial mechanisms to promote the high energy efficient products and environmentally friendly cooling appliances, namely air conditioners, room air conditioners, and refrigerators. So the main components of the project were to develop first market assessments and feasibility studies to assess the local market, then to develop a financial mechanism, where we ended with an on-wage mechanism in Ghana and on-bill financial mechanism in Ghana, where Aurélien would be explaining the mechanisms in detail further. Part of it also to develop a set of criteria as eligibility criteria of these cooling appliances to meet the regional, the national maps, regional maps, and also to develop a take-back scheme, a waste management scheme, and to finish with the communication campaign of the financial mechanism, and to finish the project with the regional capacity building in the ECOWAS region for Ghana and Senegal. Next slide, please. The same applies in Rwanda, but Rwanda, the case we had a previous project that has started since 2018, where we developed cooling strategy, including maps, and these maps entered into force in January 2021. So also we developed a national market assessment and the on-bill financing mechanism that is very much like the Senegalese one. Also, we will finish with a communication campaign and capacity building for the East African region. The partners that we list here are mainly the governmental partners, same for ECOFRIDGES and Rwanda. We have also a set of local banks, partners, and vendors, private sector partners, which are local vendors or regional vendors and distributors in the three countries. Next slide, please. And now I'll be talking about the product eligibility criteria, which is, as I explained, the set of criteria that has been developed to select the eligible products for the three programs. Next slide, please. The criteria are different from country to another, and the way how we implement it also was different. Here, the way we presented is the two scenarios we had with the countries that they have already maps, and they have the experience with maps implementation. They have the infrastructure and the framework of implementing maps, and countries that they do not have, which is the case of Senegal. It's developed, but it's not yet implemented. The case in Rwanda, the maps just entered into force, and the implementation is in process. So we developed a set of criteria that you can find here. It was very much inspired by the model regulations that United for Efficiency has developed in 2018 and 2019. You can find the resources down below, the links for the model regulations. And you can see, for example, for the energy efficiency criteria, we explained according to the current maps that is implemented and how the criteria is translated in the new maps that will be implemented soon. The law now is being drafted in Ghana. Next slide, please. The case in Senegal here, where we don't have maps implemented. So this process that you see described took, I think, a year to be designed, and which institution will be doing what, at least for the ECOFRIDGES Senegal, and how this selection will be coordinated among the three entities, which is the Energy Agency, the Environment Agency, and the Standard Agency, to end with Q2s for ECOFRIDGES Senegal, and that label or etiquette that will be on the products in the vendor shop, so the consumers or the clients, future clients, can see that this is an approved ECOFRIDGES Go ECOFRIDGES Senegal product, so they can access the program, and the vendor also can promote the program. Next slide, please. So the challenges that we faced in this eligibility of the products. First, the product's availability, which has created kind of a circle or a problem that we called chicken and egg problem. The problem is the vendors are waiting for the demand to be created, so they import, and the banks are waiting for the vendors to have a big stocks number of these eligible products, so they can run a big communication campaign. So the solution was we tried to mitigate this by starting small pilot phases of communicating the availability of the program via targeted audiences of the banks. One bank choose to target university professors, another bank choose to target first their staff, so we can start creating demand slowly, and the vendors started importing or manufacturing if it is local manufactured. Second, MEPS, of course, as explained, the eligibility criteria, implementation, the negotiations with the vendors, how much they understand this criteria, the tests that they are demanded, the certificate, the conformity assessment reports that they are also requested to join the program. So this needed long months of negotiations and training to the vendors, which is also the vendors, my third point. The fourth is the country market size, because that affects directly the rebate, the percentage of the rebate that is negotiated with the vendors. Aurélien will explain that also further. And finally, the warranty period, where the vendors tend to have to have short warranty periods, so we had to negotiate that at least to match the tenor period of the loans, which is the shortest one, which is at least 24 months, part of the eligibility criteria. The lessons that we learned, because we launched Ghana before, and now Senegal will be launched by the end of the month. Ghana we launched in October, so we added, for example, the product availability part of the eligibility criteria in Senegal. So they have to have at least an initial stock available in the country, and the plan by the end of the year of the availability of this product. So we mitigate the problem of this chicken and egg problem. Thank you. I think that's the last slide from my part. The next will be to Aurélien. Over to you, Aurélien.
Thank you very much. So now let's try to share some insight on the financial mechanisms themselves, the one that we developed as part of those projects, namely the green on wage financing and the on-bill financing scheme in the respective countries. Next, please. So those financial mechanisms are directly informed by the extensive work that we've been doing in the country, assessing the market through household surveys and intelligence to try to understand what were the barriers, the preferences from the different stakeholders, so that we can come up with a concept and then develop that concept. And the decision has been to focus on those mechanisms, the financial, the green on wage financing in Ghana and the on-bill financing for Senegal and Rwanda. The reason is that those mechanisms are really showing a lot of benefits. For instance, they provide very sort of low risk, high reward recovery mechanism through the program for the end consumers, giving them the opportunity to repay loans through a different sort of recovery mechanism, namely the salary deduction on one end when we target salaried employees of profile institutions, of partner banks, or through electricity bill deduction, so through their electricity bills. They include also, those mechanisms include as a centerpiece what we call consumer finance products. Those are arrangements between participating vendors and partner banks, where they set up a credit facilities to provide financing to end consumers to acquire those certified models of cooling appliances that are promoted and sold through the program. And we are targeting on one hand, as I said, salaried employees of public and private institutions that have been profiled by those partner local financial institutions. And on the other hand, we're targeting solvent customers of power utilities. So those are the target groups. Next, please. This slide gives you a bit of a sense of who are the key stakeholders. I already mentioned the local financial institutions, the vendors, and of course the end consumers and the power utilities. And all those actors play a specific role in the model. So first of all, as Suhir explained, the vendors are extremely important because they are the ones supplying the market with those high efficient, climate-friendly cooling appliances. Those vendors offer those products to the end consumer through the program, and they also play a role in helping with the take-back scheme. That is also a component of the programs, where basically end consumer can return old appliances, end-of-life appliances, in exchange of some direct commercial incentives, such as vouchers or cashback. For the customers, they basically, to participate in the program, they will apply through certified vendors to acquire any of those registered systems. I will explain a bit further, more in details in the next slide. And they will also basically go to the vendors, receive a pro forma invoice, reserve one of those certified appliances, and then go through the processes that we designed. So I will also explain a bit more the processes further on. As for the banks, they are the one offering credits to the customers at competitive conditions. And this is very an important aspect, which is quite innovative. It's the way we negotiated bulk rebates with participating vendors so that they can promote those high efficiency products that are also premium products and help them basically tap that new market opportunities. And in exchange of that, they were willing to provide what we called rebates. So a percentage of the sale price of the new system that will be sold through the program is used to be allocated to certain components. And it's really a market-based approach that is self-sufficient thanks to that mechanism. I will also explain a bit more later. And the banks transfer the cost of the cooling systems to the vendors minus the negotiated rebate, because part of the rebate is used to offer concessional financing through the program. So for instance, in Ghana, using that rebate, we were able to offer 0% financing for 12 months tenure period to the end consumers. And in Senegal, we will be even able to go further than that, offering longer tenure period thanks to that mechanism. As for the loan repayment mechanism, so as you understood, loans are central pieces to help finance those products and overcome the upfront costs for the end consumers. And part of the mechanism, part of the key aspect of that mechanism is to offer that low risk, high reward recovery mechanism for the stakeholders. So the bank employers for that have to sign agreements, of course, with the bank and the employers sign agreements together to set up those sort of guarantee mechanism of the loan repayments. And on the other hand, for the on-bill financing, this is done between the power utilities and the local financial institution as well, to offer the repayment through the electricity bill, the electricity consumption of the end consumers. And as for the repayment options, those, as I mentioned, are guaranteed in a sense. The employers are guaranteeing the repayments by either doing bulk repayments for all their profile employees who are part of the scheme, or they will be basically covering default in case of a customer who will not repay on time their installments. Next, please. For the benefits, I already touched upon some of them. First of all, those schemes, those financial mechanisms really ease the repayment and avoid the upfront capital costs for the end consumers, which is really one of the key aspects of those mechanisms. They offer significant benefits to the household as they help reduce their monthly expenses on electricity by acquiring those high efficient cooling appliances. We are basically help them materialize those savings into actual savings on their electricity bills. The mechanism also eases the access to credit, as the loan terms offered by the partner local financial institutions are more attractive than market conditions, and also there are less requirements in terms of collaterals or any other processes to process their credit capacity through the different mechanisms that we put in place, that I will also explain a bit further. Also, those mechanisms help improve the monitoring and reporting of the green loans. We set up very clear guidelines in terms of monitoring, reporting, and verifications, and we can really track the co-benefits of those loans that are extended by the partner local financial institutions. And it helps create pipeline of sustainable energy investment for the local financial institutions, which is very often a problem because they have access to green credit lines, but they have difficulties to find the right financing strategies to disperse those green credit lines. And those type of mechanisms are a perfect example of mechanisms that can support those disbursement efforts for the local financial institutions. I also mentioned that there are low risk sort of recovery mechanism, financial mechanism. The example have shown that the risk is close to zero because end consumer always tend to repay their electricity bills, and by linking the loan repayment to the electricity bill repayments, we therefore sort of incentivize the repayments of the customer through the program. And of course, on the case of the green on wage financing, they are guaranteed by the profile institutions that are in agreement with the banks. And it's really market-based financial mechanism. So there is no subsidy involved in the whole mechanism. We are really able to play with the market forces to offer the right set of incentives, not only to the end consumers, but also to the suppliers and to the local financial institutions to promote that investment in energy efficient cooling appliances. It's very effective for small investments. So we are talking about cooling appliances, but that can also be applied to other type of sustainable energy products, such as solar water heater, PV solar systems, lighting, and other type of products. It's also a way to open new business opportunities for utilities and help them be this utility of the future and offering financial services to their consumers by participating in a program like that. And next, please. Of course, it has a lot of co-benefits also for the utilities in terms of avoided generation capacity, thanks to the savings induced by the program at scale. Of course, central aspect of the idea or the benefit of the mechanism is this principle of bill neutrality, the fact that end consumer will acquire a high efficiency product that will also induce electricity bill reduction. And we are playing with that sort of differential to design loan features that will basically sort of use that gap and make it affordable for the end consumers to repay the loans in installments in loan tenor period that can vary between 12 to 48 months, depending the country context and the partners. And basically, when the consumer replaces the equipment, he will basically also start repaying the loan that he got to acquire the equipment. So ideally, we are trying to target that bill neutrality, which is basically the idea of compensating the energy savings by the loan repayments. And once the loan is repaid, then it's a full benefit. It's a very positive impact on that consumers. Next, please. So we covered initially the idea of the financial mechanism that are central pieces of the program that we developed. But as part of the program, there are also many other aspects that we also covered partly through Surya's slides. And also I mentioned some of those aspects. So namely the vendor bulk rebate negotiations that I mentioned. This is a central aspect that we developed as part of the program. We basically engage the participating vendors to motivate them to apply for the program, and in exchange request rebates that we use to self-invest in the different components of the program. This is a very innovative idea. It's not new. It's been done at some extent in India, for instance, by ESL, and we have been trying to sort of adapt that to consumer finance programs such as ECOFRIDGES and RCOOL FI. As part of the program, there is also the take back scheme that Sahir will describe further later on. There are the recovery mechanism, the loan recovery mechanism. So that required really a lot of engagement and work with the local financial institutions to customize this to existent agreement between them and employers from the private and the public sectors to adapt those agreements and to transfer them into ECOFRIDGES agreements in case of green and wage financing. And also a lot of work with the power utilities, namely Senelec in Senegal and EUCL in Rwanda, to help them adapt their management information systems and to enable the repayment of those loans through the electricity bills, through the meter of those end consumers that are participating through the program. And based on the discussion, we decided to target prepaid customers mostly to overcome some of the institutional barriers that were presented to us when it comes to prioritizing repayments of a debt before the repayment of electricity. So it has some challenges, but we found a nice way to cover that. And it can be really automatically prioritized in a management information system from a utility. So it's a very powerful sort of recovery mechanism. We had also to work on many agreements. We mentioned agreements between the bank, employer, between the bank, the power utilities. There are also agreements between the bank and the participating vendors, as well as terms and conditions of participation for the different actors to sort of stipulate their obligations vis-a-vis the program team. And then also we worked on customer eligibility criteria, which are the criteria that we are using to assess the eligibility of a customer to get a loan through the program. We developed what we call a credit scoring formula in the case of on-bill financing, which is very innovative, where we leverage the customer electricity bill history, and we basically inform a formula that will give a credit score for that applicant. And we use a threshold then to determine if the applicant is eligible or not for a loan through the program. So it's a very innovative approach. And again, it's always in the idea of streamlining the processes through the program. Next, please. As for the interaction, there are so many interactions between the stakeholders in the programs. Here you can see the different money flows between the partners, the customers, and also the information and good flows. So of course, the start of the program for the end consumer is to lodge a customer application to the program. And this is done through the participating vendors, where they can find the form, lodge the application, select the appliance that they wish to acquire through the program, tell us what type of financing they wish to benefit from. They will also, of course, discuss the delivery modalities, and everything is done through that form. This is really the central repository of information to enable the tracking of the application and the processing of the application between the partners. Once this is done, the application is then forwarded to the partner local financial institutions so that they can assess the eligibility of the customer, namely if it's a salaried employees of one of the profiled institutions that are in agreement with. And then if it's the case, they will approve the loan and enable the repayment of the loan through the salary deduction. So here you see all the interaction through the program. Next, please. This next scheme, this one shows the interaction in the case of the on-bill financing, where the most notable difference is the implication, the involvement of the power utilities, and the fact that the customer will do exactly the same, but to assess the eligibility of that customers, the program team will first have to assess the credit score of that customer based on the credit score formula that I described previously. And once this is the customer, the applicant is deemed eligible, then the information will be passed to the local financial institution so that they can approve the loan of that customers. And that's going to be the most noticeable difference in the two mechanisms. Next, please. As for the monitoring and evaluation and the MRV obligations and processes, we have had to operationalize the mechanism with the support from all the partners in that phase of technical assistance. So we really engage everybody to try to customize the processes and to be aligned with the commercial realities. So next, please. We really try to make it as simple and as streamlined as possible. So in the case of the vendor application, so the product application from the vendors, this is really a process that involves the program team as the center sort of compliance entity in assessing the eligibility of the product submitted by the vendor. And this is done through what we call a product application form, where the vendor will basically stipulate which product they are submitting, responding some question with regard to the different eligibility criteria that were described earlier, and enable the tracking of that application and the assessment of the eligibility. So the vendor, once he has done that process, that's first step, he will have to also, if deemed eligible, he will have also to work on the operational part of the program, which is the signature of an agreement with the partner local financial institution, so namely finance agreement, so that they can set up credit facilities, with the local financial institutions, and of course, extend the financing to their end consumers. Of course, the whole process is done, as I said, with the compliance entity. In a case of Senegal, we are talking about AME, which is the lead compliance entity, doing that project management and doing that assessment with the support of DEC, the Ministry of Environment. And in the case of Ghana, we are talking about the Energy Commission of Ghana, who is playing that role. And they will notify a vendor once it's certified, approved, and then they will basically register the product on the positive list of product, that is a list that is publicly available to every customer so that they can know what are those products that they can acquire through the program. And also they will then start implementing the M&E and MRV system as part of the program to track the co-benefits of the program. So basically, as I said, we set up what we call Mrv Guidelines, which describe all the methodologies, the processes when it comes to calculating the different co-benefits, energy savings benefit, CO2 emission reduction, finance mobilize, and so on. And this is clearly stipulated in a guideline document that vendor bank must comply with, and they should report back to the program team on a monthly basis so that we can track those. And of course, at the very end of that sort of interaction with the participating vendors, we work together to have a coherent marketing and promotion of the program, aligning with their own efforts. And we also will analyze together any potential commercial needs in the future, eventually scaling up the program to new products in partnership with the program team and the different partners. Next, please. As for the financial institutions, the process is more or less the same. Any partner financial institutions can can apply for the respective programs. To do that, they have to contact the program team. They will have to sign what we call bank's terms and conditions for participation in the program, where we have all the obligations of the financial institution vis-a-vis the program. It describes all the processes when it comes to the tracking of the customer application, the tracking of the co-benefits, and also the type of financing that we are expecting from a partner local financial institutions. Once the applicant financial institution has sent an official request to the program management, including finance proposal, sort of a loan feature proposal of financial conditions that they wish to offer to the program team. If deemed eligible and compliant, then the program team will send them the letter of approval and ask them to move on with the phase of signature of operational agreement, on the one hand with the vendor to set up the credit facilities, and on the other hand with employers in the case of green and wage financing, or power utilities in the case of on-bill financing, to enable the loan repayment through the program. And again, it's a very similar process when it comes to implementing the program, tracking the co-benefits, working together to target those customers that we are welcoming to the program as eligible, and of course analyzing future opportunities. Next, please. For the customer, so this is a sort of a scheme that shows you the different processes for the customer when they apply. So I will not go too much in detail, but basically you have on the left side what we call the customer application form, which is this central data repository that we use to track the application and proceed with the application between the partners. The customer will fill out the form here on the left side with some detailed information on their identity, address, and so on, and then select the type of modalities that they wish to participate through the program. Once this is done, this application is then proceeded with the vendor as a first step, and the vendor will also confirm the availability of the product, provide the pro forma invoice, and then in the case of the green on wage financing, provide a copy of the invoice to the partner local financial institution that has been selected by the customer. And in the case of the on-bill financing, we'll provide a copy to the program team so that they can do the eligibility assessment with the power utilities. And this is once the eligibility has been proven, the customer will sign a loan agreement with the partner financial institutions, and they will then be able to get in touch again with the vendor to secure the delivery of the chosen products. And of course, in that form, they can also select the opportunity of participating in the take-back scheme, which basically give them a 10% rebate on any future purchases with the vendor in exchange of end-of-life appliances that they're returning through the program. Next, please. And yes, here you can see on the left side the parts that are filled out by the vendor and the bank. And next, please. Yes, so as for the 3 programs in Senegal, Ghana, and Rwanda, we have set clear Mrv guidelines and targets for the program in the next year by 2024. So we are expecting additional number of refrigerators and ACs to be acquired to be about 38,000 by 2024. We are also expecting significant accumulated annual energy savings for about 9,870 megawatts, about 26 million of finance mobilized. So it's purely through market forces. We are leveraging that financing from the private sector based on those mechanisms that we set up, and also substantial CO2 emission reductions, direct and indirect. So that's all for my part of the presentation. I will give the floor again to Suhir to discuss the waste management.
Thanks. Thank you. Thank you, Ola.
Just 1 minute, Suhir and Odelia. We need to wrap up soon to be able to have time for the discussion. So thanks for the fascinating presentation. Unfortunately, we have the time we have. So Suhir, hope you can go through it rather quickly. Thanks.
Sure, thanks. I won't take much. Next slide, please. So I'll be presenting about the take-back schemes that will be, as explained by Aurélien, financed by the vendors as kind of a voluntary extended producer responsibility. This scheme is different from a country to another, from Ghana, Senegal, and Rwanda, depending on the existing of a law for waste management, the existence of local capacity for waste management companies or not, and the different agencies that they are working on waste management in that countries. So we designed 3 very different take-back schemes with very different stakeholders, but having the center, of course, the vendors are playing a big role as explained by Aurélien. Next, please. So this is the example of Rwanda. Next, please. And this is the example of Senegal. I can go in details if you have any questions after. Next, please. Now, just one slide about the digitalization of the process. As explained by Aurélien, the process is a bit long, heavy if it's paper-based approach, as we want to develop it from the beginning. But with interaction and implementing the process, it's a heavy process and heavy responsibility on the vendors. So we try to digitalize. Next slide, please. So we are working together with the Energy Commission, and a local IT company has been hired to develop the web app, ECOFRIDGES web app, that will be leveraged for Ghana, for Senegal and Rwanda too, where the Energy Commission can have a big dashboard to oversee and to monitor the program. It will facilitate also the MRV that was explained by Aurélien, and another interface for the vendors, another interface for the banks to monitor, to apply, and another interface for the consumers. They can apply online and they can see the available, available products in real time, and they can apply online. It will be also an application, a web app, and a site web for it. Next slide, please. And the last is the communication and marketing efforts. Next, so we developed strategies for communication and marketing for the 3 projects, starting with developing first a national study of the consumer behavior, how much they are aware about cooling appliances, sustainable one, environmental standards, criteria. They know of the existence of efficient products or not. And based on that, we developed a very targeted and detailed strategy, and we started with producing some communication material that will be used by the governmental partners, and at least we will end with a TV ad, radio ad for each mechanism, and a good communication material. Thank you. That's all from my side.
Thank you so much, Aurélien, Suhir. This is a lot of information, but clearly you have done a lot of work on many facets of the program, from policy to financing to the whole environmental recycling, to the MRV, to the communication. So congratulations to you to have pulled all these pieces. I'd like to invite our discussants. There's a lot of questions, and just to make sure we'll circulate the presentation. We have 2 discussants. We had allocated 15 minutes for both of you, Ashok and Ian. I don't know who wants to go first. Ashok, do you want to?
Ian, you want to start first, because the private sector viewpoint is extremely important here.
Sure, thanks, Ashok. I was going to take it alphabetically, but since you've been so kind. So look, I mean, first of all, thanks for the team for the presentation. It's very informative, exciting to see sort of innovation in this space with new financing models. So I think it was very interesting, I think, for everyone. So I guess there's 3 sort of key areas that I wanted to sort of highlight and maybe talk a little bit more about. I mean, first of all is the market. I mean, I thought it was, I was very pleased that you talked about sort of the market research that you've done, first of all, because I think it really is critical for any program of this nature to really understand, who are you targeting? And I think the fact that you've sort of nailed it down to salaried employees and people with accounts at utilities, I think that sort of makes sense for the sector that you've been targeting, which really looks like the replacement market, and not the sort of the access market, which is something that Martina touched on during her introduction. But I think when we're thinking about the market, it's really important not just to understand, who are the people that you're trying to, sell this scheme to as the end consumers, but who are the different sort of stakeholders that you're trying to bring together, and the relationships that need to be cultivated between different parties. And I mean, an example of this is, one of IFC's most sort of lauded energy efficiency finance programs in China started with the premise that a gas utility would be really interested in selling more gas to customers to support applications that were more efficient than coal-fired technology. So trying to mobilize the interest of the gas utility, and then linking that to a bank that was really interested in building a bigger loan portfolio by financing those projects. And that sort of initial premise of linking the utility to the bank, to be honest, failed. And after 2 years was abandoned. That didn't mean say the program was a failure, because the banks suddenly discovered that they could make a huge amount of money financing waste heat recovery projects in the cement industry. And that's how Chewy sort of started and has just grown and grown and grown. But the critical thing there, why did the relationship, why did that initial premise fail, was because I think we underestimated or overestimated the strength of the relationship between the utility and the bank, because they had never had a business relationship before. We thought it was a good idea. We did a good sales job, and they thought it was a good idea too, but they just couldn't make the business and the personal relationships work. So I think when we're talking about retail finance here, it's a different market. But I think the same ideas around really understanding the market and the players and the relationships and the behaviors of the people who are sort of in the very complex diagram that you showed. I mean, there's a lot of relationships there that really have to be managed and understood, I think, for these to work. Then another thing is, really trying to understand, what are the problem that we're trying to solve. I mean, you're sort of focusing here on the finance, but is it the financial model that is the problem, or is it is it also the initial cost? And I mean, yes, you've got a financial model that avoids high upfront costs, but can you reduce those upfront costs as well? And I think this is where some of the work that's being done around, say, the global cooling price, really trying to look at the technology side. Can we make technology more efficient and more affordable, so that your financing burden also becomes less and more efficient? So is there ways that those can be complemented? I think that would be interesting, to look at, maybe in other countries, or as this rolls out. I think the on-wage financing aspect is interesting. I mean, I've also heard about in the lighting access area, IFC looked at a partnership in Kenya with a tea producer, looking to be the financial intermediary for solar lantern sales to the workers that lived on the plantation. So the company is providing certain housing and services, and the interest of the company was providing lighting to the workers because it avoided fires from kerosene lamps. It built loyalty in the workers. They took a cut of the sales. So there really was a business interest of the employer in making this work. But they were talking about sort of a vast difference in the costs. I mean, $10 to $15 for a solar lantern. I guess we're looking here at $500 to $600 for a fridge or an air conditioner. Judging by the loan amount that you were talking about and the number of applications. So so there is a big difference there, and so the capital risk is much higher, and you need to think through, I guess, how many salaried employees are you really talking about? Is it a large employer that you're really working with so that they can absorb the administrative burden that is involved in here? So, I mean, those are some of the things. I've got a lot more I could say, but I think Ashok deserves a chance to talk as well. But thanks very much for the presentation.
Thank you very much, Ian, for giving us some thoughts from a private sector perspective and some of the issues on the market research importance and really focusing on addressing, clarifying the problems you're trying to solve. Ashok, if you can take a couple of minutes, maybe 5-6 minutes for some comments, so we can leave some door open for questions. There's a lot to talk about in this presentation. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Martina. I know there's a lot of good questions coming, so please stop me when it is in the 6th minute. No, seriously. First of all, thanks a lot. I think, Martina, this is a great topic. And thanks to ESMAP for organizing this event, because Africa and energy efficiency should go together. Although people have been saying, energy efficiency is not relevant, it clearly proves it's relevant, it's doable, it's practically possible to do energy efficiency in Africa. So again, thanks to the two speakers, excellent presentation. It is quite innovative. And having worked in Rwanda and Ghana myself, I know why they are in the forefront of this. Ghana has been doing energy efficiency for like 15, 20 years. And Rwanda, when I went to Rwanda 10 years ago, even that time they were talking about efficiency. So it's not a surprise that these two countries are in the forefront of what you're doing. Senegal, of course, I've heard good things about it. I've never worked there, but it's quite obvious. So I like the construct of the work which you guys are doing. Why? Because you have touched upon multiple SDGs. You're talking about, not just climate change and energy security, but you're talking about, food security, because it's all related to refrigerators. You're talking about health security. You're talking about all that, which is a very good important point while selling efficiency. Efficiency doesn't sell by itself unless you bring in the linkages to other SDGs. So that's number one, you've done very well. The other thing which I really like is you really have touched upon what we call the 5 pillars of efficiency. In the bank speak, we talk about institutions, we talk about policies and regulations, we talk about awareness, we talk about technical capacity, we talk about financing. And you have really touched upon all those 5 pillars, which are essential to take the efficiency from the talk to an actual delivery. And therefore you are delivering. So I really like the way you've done it. My few cents on this is, how do we expand this? Because what I heard from you guys is bits and pieces of small things happening. How do we expand this to not only more consumers, but also more number of appliances beyond cooling, beyond refrigeration? That's number one point. The other thing is, I didn't get a sense of, in your last MRV slide, you had the different impacts, but I didn't see the megawatt impact. I used to think Africa, the megawatt reduction impact is the biggest impact, not the megawatt hours or the CO2 and other things. So I would like to get a sense of how much peak load capacity are these programs really avoiding, because that's what costs the government the money to install. So that's one thing I think would strengthen your work. But I think the innovation is all over the place. I mean, quite frankly, what Ian was saying is correct. You have done the innovation in a bottom-up, consumer-driven incentive approach. But is it possible to bring in the innovation together with it on the bulk procurement side, so that when you do, we bring the costs down, not just the affordability of the consumers by providing them incentives from the bottom up, from the other side of the market, but from the supplier side of the energy efficiency market, can you bring in bulk procurement to bring the costs themselves down? You talked about India. I mean, India is a great example, of course, which we're trying to replicate in other countries. And costs do come down when you aggregate, when you maintain the quality at the bulk procurement level. So think about that. while thinking about a broader, large-scale replication of this to other appliances as well. Other thing which didn't come out is the issue of off-grid appliances. That's a very big deal, right, in Africa. Are you guys covering that? And I think what U4E has done, and having worked with U4E myself for the last 10 years in lighting and recently in cooling, the model regulations which you guys are putting out is a great, I would say, gift to the energy efficiency market around the world, because countries like Africa cannot afford to go through this whole process of rediscovering the model regulations. They can take your regulations and replicate. So I think the idea would be to keep strengthening those regulations regularly, because the cooling technologies are advancing. The cooling prize will be given out in a few days, right, by the RMI, and you know how much improvement is taking place in the cooling sector. So make sure that the set of approved appliances in your EcoFRIDGES scheme, the green bill scheme itself, the benchmark is moved every year, not make it static, because then you are losing the actual opportunity of energy efficiency, which is down the line there, including solar refrigeration and other technologies. So I would say the sector is going through disruption. It's no more a one-dimensional energy efficiency business, right? It is changing. So we need to keep all that in mind while developing the business models. Final point is, I also didn't get a sense of how much of what you're doing is grant-based and how much of it is commercial finance. Because energy efficiency should be a commercial financing deal. We know that, right? All you're doing is securitizing some of the upfront costs or payments to address the initial cost. So ultimately, are you still putting a grant element in this? Because that would be a non-starter to scale up, because you cannot keep giving grants, right? You have to convert energy efficiency business into commercial business. So if you can throw some light on that. I have plenty of many other questions, but I really like the innovation. I really like the construct. I really like the fact that you've touched upon multiple issues, which a lot of people don't do. They go only with one thing and think that it will be successful, but you're really touching upon the different elements of energy efficiency market transformation. Over to you guys, but great job. I will be in touch with you, as I have been with U4E for the last 10 years, of course. I'll continue my engagements with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ashok, from those perspectives. Just briefly before we go to the questions on the chat, I wanted to give the opportunity to Aurélien and Suhir to shed some light maybe, or give reactions to the points that were made by Ian from the IFC, as well as Ashok. Particularly, I know this is on a lot of people's mind on how much is grant-based, how much is commercial-based financing, the potential linkages with the bulk procurement strategy to reduce those costs there as well. So a couple of minutes to react to those questions, and then we can go to the comments in the chat. And to the audience, please continue writing down your good questions. Thanks.
Thank you. I think over to you, Aurélien, to give a little bit on the grant-based commercial.
Thank you very much. Yes, so as I mentioned during the presentation, it's really a pure market-based approach where no subsidies are involved in the process. So we are not subsidizing the price of the appliances that are sold and promoted through the program. We are only offering technical assistance, thanks to support from KSEP, to develop the mechanism and operationalize the mechanism in the respective markets. But beyond that, it's pure market forces. It's basically commercial agreements between private sector companies. Of course, there is the involvement of the government to sustain the programs beyond the technical assistance, to also make sure the different actors comply with strict eligibility criteria when it comes to the energy efficiency and the climate benefits that we are trying to materialize through those programs. But besides that, it's purely market-based approach. For the bulk repayment and the question of the price of the appliances. So the bulk repayment is extremely powerful, but it has, of course, some limitations. And as Suhir mentioned during the presentation, the country size, the market size is one of them. You cannot expect in each of the single market you are entering to use that mechanism, the bulk rebate negotiation, to cover all the key components of the program. I'm talking about covering on one end the voucher that is provided to a consumer who is returning old appliances, which is a 10% rebate just for that. I'm talking about a few percentage points to cover the cost of collection and disposal. That is also something that we are expecting the vendors to cover. So also, let's say, up to 5% of the selling price of the new appliances, so 5% more. And then I'm talking about another percentage that we use to sort of offer that concessional financing through the program. So to help the local partner financial institutions improve the lending features that they are offering to the end consumers and go below market conditions through that program, thanks to the rebate. So we're also talking about, let's say, 10 to 15% of rebate for that. So of course, not all the country can go up to 30%. In small markets, you will have to deal with lower rebates because those rebates are actually directly coming from the marketing and promotion budget from those participating vendors. So if they don't access to a large market, they won't have a lot of margin to play with and to invest in such a program to promote premium appliances. So that's the issue of the price. So we are dealing with market prices. Basically, it's up to the vendors to apply and to register the price of the product that they wish to sell through the program. And also I covered the bulk rebate. So I don't know if Suhair, you want to jump in and cover other aspects?
Thanks. I would add on the government part and the in-kind contribution and engagement of the government that we have been working with, namely Rwanda, Ghana, and Senegal. Specific teams has been assigned to run the programs, and we've been running, having meetings with the respective teams to kind of do the transition from the program design to understand and even to make the program design better. So in Senegal, for example, we have a team of 4 with a team leader that they will be running and implementing the program. On the eligibility criteria and is it stagnant or not? No, the eligibility criteria for now is for the first year. As we are working with the Energy Commission in Ghana, Energy Agency in Senegal, it will be updated on yearly basis and updated according to the new standards or the new available products or non-available products to continue transforming the market. On part of the off-grid appliances, we had some manufacturers of solar cooling appliances, fridges, namely have applied but not yet accepted in the program, at least in this first months. According to our governmental partners, let's run with on-grid with the connected one first, and then maybe scale for the solar ones, knowing that they are, I think, 2 times more expensive than the connected grids. The connected in the grid. That's it, I think. Thanks for the remarks and for the notes. The megawatt, the impact on the megawatt is noted. We will work on that definitely. Please, if you have any other suggestions, because it's still work in progress. We're still refining and working on the different parts. Thank you.
Thank you very much again, Ashok and Ian, for the comment and kicking off the discussion. Aurélien and Suhair for shedding light. You provide a lot of information. On your last point, it reminded me a little bit of what ESL has done in India to report. And as Ashok was saying, they are reporting the megawatt on their dashboard, and it's a powerful metric to stimulate interest among policymakers. We have a number of questions. I will read a couple of them out. and maybe you can decide among yourselves, Aurélien and Suya, how you want to respond. I'd also invite Ashok and Ian to jump in if they have other comments to add. So we have a question on what is the source of funding that allows you to offer 0% interest to the end consumer? And what do you do with the used appliances for which you give a voucher to the end customers? Does the voucher have a monetary value? How do you make sure it is more attractive to them than selling the old fridge to a neighbor? And again, congratulations. So that's one question. Well, a series of questions by one person. Then there's a question on the on-wage system. The negotiated rebate with vendors, is this a discount on the price based on bulk procurement? If so, who procures the EcoFridge? Then there was a comment about a question, how attractive do the financial intermediaries find this opportunity? And what is the anticipated scale in the given countries after this trial phase is completed? A related question is, what do you see, hope is the level of replication of this approach in multiple countries, and do you plan to play a role in this, and what are your next steps? I think a lot of interest in understanding your views and maybe the group's views as well on what could be the replication. There's a question to clarify on the financing terms. Was it really zero financing? I think there might have been some confusion. Aurélien, you mentioned 30%, and so there's a little bit of confusion on the rate. And so maybe I'll leave it here for now, and you can try to bite off some piece of these questions, and I see more of them are coming in right now.
Thank you very much. Maybe I will start, and then Suhail will complement my remarks and my responses. So first of all, about the financing, I think indeed we were talking about 0% financing to the end consumer through the partner banks in the respective countries. Of course, the lending features that are provided by the partner banks can vary from one to the another. But the whole principle that really enabled the concessional financing offered by the partner banks to the end consumer through the program is really that rebate that they receive from the participating vendors. And that rebate that we are talking about is 15%. So let's say I sell a product that costs $100. The vendor will basically only ask me as a bank to credit $85. So I have $15 that I can play with as a bank to sort of improve the lending features that I will offer through the program. So assuming that the bank is not trying to earn a fat margin through the program, they will actually report that into their pricing proposal. So that's why we have seen banks in Ghana offering 0% financing to the end consumers, which is much below the market rates in the case of Ghana, where we're talking about 20% and plus for 12 months loan tenor periods, usually. So that's a very powerful sort of mechanism and commercial arrangement between the banks and the participating vendors who are setting up those credit facilities. And the term credit facilities means that when a customer is approved for a loan, he will just get the product. He will not pay anything from out of his pocket. He will just have to get the delivery of the product, and then it's the bank who is crediting the vendor. So the money flow goes from the bank to the vendor. The end consumer doesn't have to pay anything out of his pocket, but the customer is the one getting the loan. So he is the one responsible of repaying the loan, the full amount of the loan, the full price of the product, through either his payroll deductions, as we mentioned in the case of grain and wage, or through the electricity bills in the case of on-bill financing. So I hope that give a bit more clarity on that mechanism. It's not so complex, but it has some innovative aspects. For the replication aspect and the scale up aspect, if I may, we think that it has huge potential to be replicated in other countries. Of course, it's very important to understand the country context before replicating such a mechanism. You also have to understand the political economy in a country, the institutional aspects, the policies, the laws, and that will really guide your decision in proceeding with either a green on wage or on-bill financing. So in the case of on-bill, of course, you need to have a very strong power utility partner because they are essential to make it operational. And in the case of green on wage financing, one of the hints that I could share is that it will help if there are already profile institutions in agreement with partner local financial institutions in a market, and you can really build from that into a green on wage financing mechanism. So it's really going to be saving a lot of time. You don't have to renegotiate those agreements between the public and private institutions and the banks. You can build from what is already existing. For the scaling up, yes, huge potential in those three markets. With support from multilateral development bank, from investors, namely to support the private sector, let's say providing green credit lines to the partner local financial institutions, to even further improve the lending conditions as part of the program, to support the vendors, offer some sort of trade finance products or guarantees so that you can really incentivize them to bring in those quantities of certified models that they are a bit reluctant to bring in high quantity at first. So if there is something to be done, I think this could be an angle. And also, of course, scaling up to other potential appliances, energy efficient appliances and products. I was mentioning solar water heater, lighting. All sort of small investment could be a good fit for scaling up in those markets. And there is a huge interest from the partner institutions to also scale up and to sell more product than just refrigerators and ACs. Maybe Suhail, you want to discuss the voucher and the collection and disposal?
Sure. Thanks. So the voucher, as explained by Aurélien, is part of the rebate. Certain percentage going from the rebate to finance the take back scheme or the waste management scheme. It does not have a monetary value, so it's not cash, but it's a discount on a subsequent purchase for a value of for example, 10% of the new appliance acquired part of the program. So that amount will finance directly the waste management of the discarded appliance in case that the consumer has an old appliance to discard. But it's not only a replacement scheme, so it's not only so new customers that they do not have old appliances can also acquire EcoFridges, can also access the mechanism, and also cash clients can also apply for with the same price of the appliance. So it's not only replacements. We have the three scenarios: cash applicants, or cash clients, old appliance client with an old appliance, or a new appliance with a loan without an old appliance to replace. So he will not have, or she will not have, the voucher. Thank you.
Thank you, Aurélien and Suhail, for those clarifications. I think Ashok, as well as Ian, if you want to add to this part of the discussion, that would, feel free to do so. Ashok, I know you had something to add. Please go ahead.
I had put a few questions, but we can come back to that later. But I think the point which Aurélien was making about the importance of a utility in Africa is extremely critical. We cannot think about fancier business model in many of the African countries where the banking market and the ESCO market, etc., are not as mature as they are in some of the OECD and major developed country markets. So utility is really the center and the one with the credible entities in most of these countries. So anything we do in energy efficiency has to involve the utility. So that's a good strategy. But the fact which you guys, Aurélien and Suhail, have been talking about is the importance of the other stakeholder, which is the financial institution, is also there. So if you can bring those two to the table, then I think much of the barriers we talk about, the market failures, could be addressed, because that's where basically we have the last mile, I would say, problem. But having said that, I wanted to also ask you, maybe if you have time, all what you have done, obviously being smaller, the transaction cost must be prohibitively high, right? I mean, it's not just the incremental cost of the efficient appliance, but the cost of MRV, the cost of waste management, the cost of awareness, the cost of program management, cost of training the banks. Do you have a sense of how much has been the transaction cost part of it, and who pays for it? I mean, initially somebody has to invest, right? And that's where the grant money probably is required. So I wanted to get a sense of that. And one operational question, maybe I misheard it, Orlin, but you said the credit information of the customer is also included in the on-bin financing in Senegal and Rwanda. But if the employer, or in case of Ghana, I think, but if the employer has guaranteed that they're going to bundle the repayment from the employees and give it to the bank, why do you need another level of credit check on the consumer? I'm just trying to understand, how do you cut down the transaction cost of this? How do you make it simpler? Or is there a reason that you do both credit checks as well as an employer guarantee? Over to you. Maybe I misheard it, sorry.
Yeah, so those are very good points. Ian, I don't know if you had some to add as well or contribute.
No, it's fine. Ashoka and I have scarily similar questions. So I just hand over back to the team.
Okay, I must say, from someone who works in a technical assistance program, I'm also quite interested in what did you budget for the design of this program, and what because that then will also be a key factor in the feasibility of such programs. Thanks.
Thank you very much. So on the grant question, so as I mentioned, it's sponsored by KSEP. So we were grantees of the KSEP program to promote market transformation in the cooling sector in the respective countries. And it's really a KSEP grant that enabled us to provide that technical assistance and to develop not only conduct the market assessments in the respective countries, but also develop the concepts, and then of course to operationalize the different aspect of the program in partnership with the partners. So we are not paying any partners in that with that regard. They are all shipping in because they are interested in leveraging those market opportunities through participation in the programs. But we are basically covering our staff time and the different procurement that was needed during that initial phase, thanks to the KSEP grant. That was very helpful to develop those programs. And the program that will be sustained by themselves in the future, because it's purely a market-based approach. As I said, at the end, it's going to be financing from the local partner institutions. We are not financing the program team in the respective countries. They are themselves setting up the dedicated staff to cover the program as one of the program among their portfolio of program. So it's really working by itself in the future. Basically, there is no need to inject any financing or fund support. So yeah, I don't know if you want to add something on that specifically. If not, I would like to maybe just share some hints about how you can engage the power utility to show the business opportunity. So for us, a very important step was to do the right analysis. So we did extensive economic and financial analysis to prove what were those business opportunities for the utility. And also it was clearly very important to align with their own business strategies. So in the case of Senegal, we knew for a fact that the power utility was trying to extend prepaid meters in the next years. So we aligned with that strategy by restricting the eligibility to those prepaid customers. And for those who are not prepaid customers, we will still assess their credit application, see if they're eligible in terms of credit worthiness, but then we will ask them to convert their meter towards a prepaid meter through the program if they wish to participate in the program. So it's very important. Show the results, show the potential benefits, and align with the business strategy of the power utility. I don't know if Suya, you want to complement what I said?
Yes, thanks. Thanks, Aurélien. I will comment on the power utility and then go back to the grant part. Exactly, the power utility is very, very critical to deal with. We need to have that political will also from the power utility that they are interested in the capacity also. So, for example, for Senelec only in Senegal, we've been meeting them on weekly basis, me and Aurélien and the team, for a year now. So we just finished all the legal agreements and dealing with the different teams from marketing, commercial, legal to the top management and going back to the director level. So it's been a year of weekly meetings, and that was part and covered by KSAP grant, which we thank, of course, for financing such a program. Me and Aurélien, we've been working daily on this project for almost now since mid to 2019. We're still working at least until the end of this year. This is so how it was covered financially, how it is sustained. To add on Aurelian's point, sustained, we are financing the parts that we developed part of the program, but also, for example, we're financing now the web app that is developed. We are financing the conformity assessment process and in Senegal. So we're supporting with the government to pay for that process and to finalize it. So we are supporting in terms of the grant, because it's not a very big grant, but we are trying to manage and to make it where it's needed, and also to engage the government to make it that is sustained and to give them the ownership of the program, so they are involved from day one of the design of the project and now in the implementation with the weekly, also some weekly and bi-weekly meetings. So yeah, it's also part of the design of the programs. Thank you.
Many thanks to both of you. Congratulations on visibly the hard work in developing all the pieces of this puzzle to make a really a good try at market transformation for efficient cooling. So as you can see from the questions and the discussions, there is a lot of interest in this. If you do publish lessons learned or guidance on how to do this, please share it, and we'll be happy to share it with our community. You probably cannot replicate exactly the programs, but if we can adapt it and not reinvent the wheel every time, I think many countries could benefit from such an approach. So please do, we will stay in touch with you. We're good partners, happy to do so. Many thanks to Ashok and Ian for sharing their expertise and obviously always pertinent questions. We'll continue this series on cooling, and we hope that you'll remain engaged with us. Thanks to all the participants who joined us today. Everyone has a busy schedule and are tired of Zooms. We fully understand that and appreciate your time. We will circulate the presentation. And again, Aurélien, Suyet, if you have other website links or links to material, we will send them as well with the presentation so everyone can have access to them. So with that, from ESMAP's perspective, we really thank everyone and wish you a very nice day. Stay safe.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.